Richard Dannett is a retired general who commanded British Army from 2006 to 2009 and became an independent member House of Lords, Upper House UK Parliament. In 2011, he writes and speaks on military affairs and leadership issues. In an interview with RFERL's Georgian service, Dannett said West's reluctance to quickly arm Ukraine with the lethal weapons it needs gave Russian President Vladimir Putin's occupying forces time they needed to build defensive lines in conquered areas of Ukraine. This means, according Dannett, that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his Western allies should prepare for what is likely to be a protracted conflict with Russia, with Kiev struggling retake these fortified areas. The minister also said Ukraine's strike deep into Russia was legitimate in part to humiliate its military. RFERL. Let's start with your assessment of the summer phase of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. How stable has it proven to be? Richard Dannett. I think we have to admit that the Ukrainian army paid dearly in terms of casualties during the summer months. But I think we should put this in the broadest possible context of February 2022, when the Russians launched their shameful, highly illegal attack on Ukraine. And in time since 2022, Ukrainian army has achieved remarkable success in recapturing at least half of territory illegally seized by Russians. With beginning autumn and beginning of winter and worse weather approaching, I think possibility a decisive movement on battlefield in 2023 looks most unlikely. Of course, many countries support Ukraine, and quite decently US, UK too, and many others. Of course, but I think it's fair say that West was quite slow to give Ukraine weapons necessary. Launch this counteroffensive. It took a long time to decide to send tanks, armored infantry fighting vehicles, self-propelled artillery, sufficient ammunition, long-range artillery and unmanned aerial vehicles. This was done. And indeed it took quite a long time for Ukrainian forces to be trained on how to use this equipment. And of course, while this was going on, the Russians were not idle. They spent the same time preparing very extensive defensive positions, up to 3 defensive lines, in many parts of the 1,000-kilometer front line, which proved very difficult for Ukrainian forces to penetrate. But hope at beginning of summer that Ukrainian forces equipped with Western tanks and other equipment would not only break through Russian lines but penetrate Russian rear areas, cause panic. We saw in September last year in north of country this has not happened so far. Ukrainians are not for trying. But I am afraid this is a reflection of the fact that the Russians have prepared very deep and very comprehensive defensive positions. So, with onset autumn and onset of winter and worse weather coming, I think possibility a decisive movement on battlefield in 2023 looks most unlikely. So I think President Zelensky and the Ukrainian Mili